opinions expressed on any program are those of the producers and/or the persons appearing on the program, and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of FRC Media, Bristol Community College, or the City of Fall River.
With them. Oh, thank you very much. I wasn't broadcasting any sound. Sorry about that. My, as I said, my co-host is lost somewhere in the parking lot. We always have these little technical glitches every time we turn around, and that's what happens with a live show. Let's get right to the President's State of the Union speech last night, in which he clearly said he wanted to remember the middle class, and he wants to have tax hikes for the rich and more, remembrance of the middle class and bringing that back. And education is the forefront of our communities and our country, and high-tech jobs are where it's going to be at. Well, I hope so. And but again, I feel that this was a prep speech for the 2016 presidential election. But again, the president made it very clear with his dig at the Republican House that he won both his elections, and because people did kind of laugh at him a little bit, and I don't think that it was a partisan attack at the president. I think it was more along the lines of a institutional situation where people were just laughing about what was going on. So it always makes it an interesting day. I'm hoping my co-host gets here very shortly. But we have to look at this the way it is. I think that the Republicans are going to attack him on the Keystone Pipeline, whereas, they're talking about, 50, 100 jobs, and, the president's currently speaking about, maybe thousands of jobs. But again, we always speak about jobs in the perspective point of where we may get them. But I don't think that we have jobs in the reality portion of it, which is where are they right now? We seem to be doing that at the national level. We definitely do that at the local level every time you turn around. And we have to say, we can talk about everything under the sun, but honestly, let's make things happen the way that it's supposed to happen. And joining us right now is our lovely co-host. Lost on the campus grounds, I take it. So
no, not lost. Just completely forgot classes began again, and there were absolutely no parking places. And I spent 10 minutes on Ellsbury Street, being in a stopped line that they were allowing traffic to leave the parking lot before we could get in. So I apologize, but it won't happen again. I know classes are back in, so unfortunately. So hi, everybody.
Don't feel bad. I started out with a mic that was muted so nobody could hear me. So
I don't know. I don't know what CJ began today.
I started with the President's State of the Union message to the country, and I said it sounded like a political prep for the 2016 presidential election. So
yeah, well, God, a politician being a politician, what a surprise that is, right?
I know.
It's unbelievable. But I guess, I mean, if you're done with that, I think we'd should segue into some issues on the city level, and then I am going to touch upon and segue because it's really funny. I think it shows that it's not just in the city. To our Boston Broadside, the paper that sent us a copy of itself and asked if we would discuss some of their issues too. And I think it's good, especially when they relate so closely to ours. So I don't know if you heard me, I was on the radio yesterday. They called me for comment about the new jobs that are going to be talked about today. And, you know, my position was simple. You know, I can understand why the mayor wants to bring in people who he knows, who he has confidence in, who he has worked with before, and he feels can do the job. But with that being said, that as the first and the initial real major move he's made, I don't think was the best action politically, because the perception is that CJ's adjusting the camera here with the unbreakable lens. Okay, all right. I don't think it's the best move. I think we should have seen some positions and some reorganization and maybe a closer look at what we're going to do to save money in this city, not create more money and more jobs, especially jobs that overlap. You know, the COO, Chief Operating Officer, it seems like that's the new buzzword in Fall River. We have chief operating officers in middle schools and the school. Seems to me just another way of giving somebody a paycheck. This isn't a multinational conglomerate corporation that has a zillion different kinds of subgroups you have to run. We have departments in this city. All those departments have department heads, and it's their job, and they get their salary to run their own departments. It's kind of like a military organization. You know, the general runs the army, but the company commanders run the companies, and he really doesn't have need a lot of other assistance, because we have a city administrator. That city administrator's job is to basically be the COO of the city while the mayor is the mayor. Actually, I was on the Fall River Regional Task Force that put together the reorganization that resulted in the position of city administrator to become a reality. So I know what it's supposed to be, and to have someone that's the operating officer, well, we're going to cut the city administrator's salary. I don't know. There's a lot of money being spent again, and I'm going to give him time to hope he comes up with something. But as Barry Richards said yesterday on the radio, unfortunately, he's come stumbling out of the blocks. He hasn't come out. He hasn't come out really solidly. He's done more of the same, which is create jobs and give out fairly big salaries, and without any eye toward basically paring down our government. We have a overmanaged government. As I said, you know, I know most of the department heads personally, Kenny Pacheco and Chief Viveris, Chief Racine. I know most of these department heads, Madeline Coelho. They're all competent people. They all do their job. They run their departments. Why, you know, so we need an administrator, and then we need a COO, and geez, I mean, what is he going to operate? These departments operate themselves. I mean, I just, you know, maybe it's me, silly me. I thought that the city's job, this is not a major corporation. City's job's real simple. Provide services to the taxpayer. Make sure we have public safety, make sure we have an educational system, make sure we have our trash picked up. And we have departments that are commissioned to do that, and they all have department heads. Why do we need all this management? We are severely overmanaged. We have way too many chiefs and not enough Indians, and it's not a good start.
No, it's not. And you know, Chip, the thing that really bothers me a lot is that the only difference between the Flanagan administration and the Sutter administration now has been that at least the Sutter administration is taking it to the city council. I was going to make an effort to be at the ordinance committee meeting this afternoon, because it's at 4 o'clock. And I thought, well, that might be a good idea. I'll get there, and then I can make it back to the studio for a later taping of one of our sister shows, The Richard Urban Show, because today is the panel show. But I think that what's really important for us to understand is that we're looking at the fact that we're putting people on with an ordinance, which means they're there for forever, until somebody can get the cojones to take it off. There's no job description currently, although Councilor Correa said on the radio that job descriptions are going to be coming down in packets to the Ordinance Committee today. Again, last minute coming down to the Ordinance Committee. I think that job description should have been sent out to the City Council initially. But I think the bigger concern I have is that we're talking about adding more money to the budget. And Mayor Sutter said on the radio that, we've already made cuts of 5 positions in city government. Those 5 positions are basically the legal department. You've got rid of 2 jobs in the legal department, the corporate counsel and assistant corporate counsel. And they also got rid of a paralegal. And at this point in time, the chief of staff is gone, which was Ann O'Neill Souza. Although rumor has it that the question was asked of Ann if she'll stay on until the transition team is done. I found that a little questionable, but again, the source that I got it from was pretty reliable, but again, City Hall sources can sometimes be unreliable. But I think the big question we have to ask is it the mayor's then intent to say he's going to use the jobs he's already eliminated, those salaries to be buffered by these that he's putting in? Or are these going to come in and then we're going to fill the legal department next? Because obviously we need corporate counsel. And while Gary Howiak is very good at his job, I find it very, questionable at this point in time to say, well, Gary can do it as a part-time attorney and just take on all the if, ands, and whats.
No, that's, of course, it's a great point. I mean, I don't believe, unless there's a complete reorganization of the city, that we can have a one-man law department. The fact is that, we never have. I think that those jobs are temporarily left, and you can't look at that as a savings. And if they are, in fact, going to be a savings, how about priorities again? Let's get back to priorities. Why weren't, if we've got a $70,000 job and a $45,000 job with benefits, you put that together, it's 100 and some grand. Why don't we have a firefighter or 2 put back on the fire department? Why don't we have a police officer and a firefighter? Why don't we have something that the public has been crying for? Again, it's really, it looks like they really don't realize what the public and why, what we want and why we call back this mayor. There's also the issue of residency. We have these 2 people, and one I have been told, and it was on yesterday's radio show, Barry Richards said that one of them is moving into the city. The other one says, no, I like my house in Rainham, and I'm going to stay in Rainham, and they're going to look for a waiver. Well, if that waiver is granted by the city council after all the debate about putting Fall River people in Fall River jobs, now the debate is going to resurface, because I know that the mayor wants this individual. He's worked with this individual. He has a lot of confidence, and I think he's a very, I think he is competent. I think he will do a good job. However, if you make a waiver after all the complaints that we heard about keeping Fall River people, then you're basically saying there's no one in Fall River that can do that job, and that's not true. And I even question that job when you look at it and its overlap with the city administrator. It's all about priorities, it's all about money, and it's all about, look, as you said, when Mayor Flanagan came in, he brought a truckload of Taunton people over here, and they're all gone.
Right, and the thing is, Chip, and again, let's talk about this residency requirement. Former Councilor Dave Dennis says he's not for residency requirements for jobs because it gives the opportunity for the administration to pick the best of the applicants that come in. But the thing is that what vested interest do you have if you don't have to become a resident? I know that if I take a job in Los Angeles, I can't exactly commute back and forth. If I take a job in Boston, I have to establish residency. Nobody's saying you have to be a resident at the time that you apply for the job. What we're saying is that if you take the job, you have to be a resident. And that gives you a vested interest in the city. Now, in a conversation with the city councilor, I was told by the city councilor that the reason why they've never enforced residency requirements is because no one on the council and no one in the administration has the cojones, the agates, whatever you want to call it, to take on this situation. And I firmly agree that. I agree with that 100%, that they don't, you know, it looks good, it sounds good, but if we try to enforce it, that's not going to be good politics.
Well, you know, we have the double standard again, and this is what troubles me. You know, I negotiated with the city for almost a quarter of a century. For 24 years, I negotiated with this city. And every time I went to the bargaining table and brought in the salaries of our universe, the other 9 cities of our size, because that's what you have to use if you go to arbitration. You have to use communities within your state of comparable size. In order to, you know, they won't allow you to compare yourself with Boston because of the tax base and the number of people, or a small community that's very rich. You have to keep communities. So when I used to do that, the first thing out of the city's mouth was, hey, this is Fall River. We don't have the money. The average wage here is much lower. You can't expect to get Newton money working in Fall River. Yet, every time there was an administrative pay raise or we hire somebody from out of town, the first thing they hear is, we have to look at what these people get throughout not only this state, but throughout the country in order to attract them. Well, guess what? If that's the case, let's pay everybody what the national average is or the state average is. Let's not just make it for political appointees and department heads that you select. That is, you know, that is what the problem is, because the problem with Fall River is we keep the poor people poor and we make them poorer because, you know, they keep inflating our budget and then say, well, don't worry about it. You have to pay more taxes if you want, which segues me into one thing, CJ.
Go right ahead. It's all yours.
This is the newspaper, the Boston Broadside, and I am reading this verbatim, talking about why we have so many problems, not only in this city, but in this state and in this nation. It's all about taxation and political jobs. Politics and patronage have become the albatross that's destroying every city and state in this country. I'm reading this article verbatim. It's entitled, "A Year of Raises." As the state legislature has the ability to tax, and tax, so they also have the ability to spend, and spend. Let's do it by the numbers. 15%, the year 2014 brought 15% raises to 11 district attorneys, jumping their base salaries to more than $171,000 a year. 23%. Mass sheriffs, all 14 of them, took 23% raises, and the same for the judges. $1.6 million in raises announced at the State House by Bob, quote, Gravy King, unquote, DeLeo. Those are their words, not mine.
I know.
The day before Thanksgiving, for employees of the House of Representatives. An untold additional sum is pending at press time for elected officials and others. $100 million plus spent on temporary health care plans due to the state's failed health care Connector website. Gosh, did anyone ever think perhaps that poor folks shouldn't have computers anyway? So why force them to enroll online? Why not use a good old-fashioned pen and paper? That's what all the technobabble website wasted on this excuse stuff, $100+ million. 40% increases in the number of state employees making more than $100,000 since Deval Patrick took office. 10,000, the number of new expanded bodies on the government payroll since Patrick assumed the helm. $2 billion, the amount spent on illegal aliens each year in Massachusetts. $9 million plus to renovate the governor's office. Well, I guess it's better than 900,000, but he is the governor. But I guess it makes Flanagan pale by comparison. 100,000 to hire a state climatologist because, heck, channels 4, 5, 7, and 25 only have so many to go around. And lastly, $2 billion borrowed to fund new pet projects for the coming years, including $9 million for a decorative pier at Revere Beach. And see prior articles for the listings of the gazebos and other frivolities which we will be required to pay for along with interest. So that's the end of the article. But you know something? That article says it all. Thank you, Boston Broadside, for making our point. Mayors, governors, presidents, all they do is inflate the rolls with high-paid cronies and patronage. The only way Fall River, the only way this state is going to survive is if we stop this madness. We have to vote these people out of office if they continue. Any politician that will not remember that it's government's job to run a lean government and provide services to the taxpayer, not employ every cousin and relative they have and every friend, they've got to go.
Well, you know, Chip, you're speaking heresy. You better be careful. They might stone you out in the parking lot. But, you know, it's interesting that you bring that up because if you remember in the inaugural speech, if you remember the things that have been said, that we have to make some, you know, tough decisions. Well, you know, I hate to throw your words back at you, Mr. Mayor, but we have to make some tough decisions. And maybe your political patronage jobs need to stop. You know, I know the person who is up for the position of Chief of Operations. I don't know him personally, but I've looked at his record. And yes, he may have a very good record, but can Fall River support it? Can Fall River take that chance that, you know, we have to pay for that job? I mean, I don't think so. And I really don't believe for a moment that any city councilor, I don't think any one of the magnificent 9 have the backbone to say no. And I definitely know that there's a particular 3 or 4 that will always say yes. And we know that the counselor in seat 1, you know, she doesn't even think. She just goes, yes, yes, yes. And you know, but these are the people that Fall River wants. They want people that don't have backbone. They want people that cannot make a decision that goes against the grain of anything this mayor or this administration has to say, or any mayor or administration has to say.
Yeah, you know, and that's true.
The scary part about it. We got to stop that. We have to stop it. We have to say, you know what, those are my tax dollars. So instead of doing that, instead of saying, well, you know, pay as you throw, although we're saying it's 99% successful, we can't depend on it, so we're going to have the Housing Authority bolster our income. And then if you look in Commonwealth Magazine, and they spoke recently about the commuter rail, the South Coast extension. Guess what? Not going to happen. Can't do it. Not going to happen. And what they're depending on, as a state elected official is depending on, is that the Olympics does come to Boston. Because if it does, then they can utilize the Olympics coming here as tax money to build the infrastructure. Again, tax money.
Yep, spend, spend, spend. And, you know, I mean, I don't mind the mayor creating a COO if it's in conjunction with a reorganization. I mean, we didn't have a city administrator at one point in time. We didn't have the departments weren't structured the way they are today. That was all part of the reorganization under Carlton Viveris, which was basically discussed by the Fall River Regional Task Force. But just to put these jobs and add another layer, as this article said, another 10,000 jobs statewide added, hundreds of thousands of dollars in pay, 23% for judges and sheriffs. That's obscene. No wonder they don't care if the tax rate goes up. Your tax rate goes up 5%, $500 a year, what do you care? You just got a $12,000 a year raise or a $24,000 a year raise. But in Fall River, that means somebody can't buy his medications or somebody can't pay his bills. It has to stop. And I don't care if we have a COO and we change the name from chief of staff to special assistant to the mayor or whatever you want to call it. I don't care if you call it. I don't care what you call it.
Actually, though, Chief, I was going to call you Chief because you know what? You have been. From what I understand, there is somebody who's going to be getting the Chief of Staff's position. Again, this is unconfirmed, but somebody will be taking over as the Chief of Staff. And I believe that's somebody also from the District Attorney's Office. So we're not actually doing away with any positions. We're just not filling them yet because we want to get certain positions done first.
Yeah, well, that's my point. Like, as I said, I don't have any problem to any kind of position if it's part of a total reorganization. When we got these other positions and these departments were retooled and reorganized, they changed the names of some positions. They created new positions. But that was all part of a total reorganization package, which actually saved money. There was consolidation of duties. Some people did more work. They got a little bit more money, but they eliminated certain jobs. They consolidated certain duties into other departments. They eliminated things. And that's the key. It was about getting a lean, effective government structure. Was it perfect? No. Did it work? No. But what's happened over the years since the Carlton Viveris administration is exactly what happened here in the state. They've created more and more and more jobs without eliminating anything. And as I said, if you want to get rid of the city administrator, call it the COO, the ABC, the XYZ, I don't care what you call it. If it quacks like a duck and it walks like a duck, you can call it a chicken all you want, it's a duck. The fact is, let's have a job, let's have a total reorganization, because what it looks like to the people out on the street today is a lot more of the same, and that's not good.
No, and it's not. And the thing is that when you look at the departments themselves, they have a department head, and then they have assistant department heads. And we have assistant department heads driving around in city trucks doing their own personal business, their business, in city trucks with tinted windows. What city truck needs tinted windows? Why? Why does this person need to be driving around the city doing his business and not city business? So that we can pay him, because again, it's political patronage. And we know these are political patronage jobs. And if Mayor Sutter is truly going to do this, he needs to start at the bottom, okay, and start cutting them, and start at the top and meet somewhere in the middle, okay, because at this point, we're heavy on both ends. But the only ones we're not heavy in is actual people to do the work.
And that's why we pay our taxes. We pay our taxes for services. We pay our taxes for police officers, for firefighters, for services. Everybody loves, and I know our buddy Councilor Carrera loves to say this is a business. No, it isn't. This is a nonprofit. We're not supposed to make a profit in a city. We're supposed to collect enough taxes to provide the necessary services, to provide what we have a moral, not only a legal, in my opinion, obligation to the citizens. To be able to have a department, a fire department understaffed is, to me, morally objectionable. We pay our taxes for services, not for bureaucrats.
This is true, Chip. And remember, free cash means they got too much money. Thanks for watching, everybody, and we'll see you next time on Spindle City Straight Talk.
Have a great day and read Boston Broadside.